Riot just killed TEJO. Not only did they kill him, they dragged him into an alley and threw his body into a dumpster. Find out what that means for the meta with this tier list for every map in the game. Act 3 kicks off with Sunset coming back into the map pool, and Fracture has been yeeted into oblivion, just like TEJO. You guys really seem to love the last tier list video, so we're running it back since there are enough changes to talk about now. To keep it simple, I'm going to be combining all the patch changes since the last video into this one, and because they've already been announced, I am going to include the TEJO changes, even though they're not live just yet, but they will be live soon enough. If there's more major changes in the next patch, I'll do an update video for it as well. If you'd like a tier list for patch 10.8 pre-TEJO nerfs, you can find that on my Patreon. You'll also find an updated tier list for every patch, no matter how small the changes are. You can get the tier list as a free member on my Patreon, so you can stay updated between the major patches. And if you're interested in any playbooks for your 5-stack, Premier Team, or even Duo, you can find them on my Patreon as well. I release free sample pages every time I post a playbook.
Let's dig in.
Like I said, TEJO got hit hard. His guided salvos have been completely gutted. Now you only spawn with one rocket, not one use, one single rocket, and you can purchase a second one for 150 creds. So now at max, you only have a single use of guided salvos in its original state, but if you only use one rocket, it only costs you one stock. The range indicator also got reduced from 55 to 45 meters. The cost of TEJO's drone went up 100 credits from 300 to 400. Now it costs the same as Sova's drone, which makes sense. I like that change. They're similar power level abilities. And to compensate, they did take 100 credits off of his stun, so that's gone from 300 to 200. And his ult has gone from 8 points to 9 points, which brings it in line with other big ults like Breach and KJ ult. I don't know why it wasn't that way to begin with. This is a much more pro play targeted nerf because TEJO's value gets exponentially better with coordination, where his salvos become deadly weapons. These nerfs are so harsh that his win rate and his pick rate are going to plummet in ranked as well. Yoru has received 2 nerfs over the last 2 patches. No functional reworks, just number adjustments. Firstly, raising the cost of his decoy from 100 to 200. This is going to add up throughout the game, but also it means that you can no longer frenzy decoy and flash buy on pistol, or even decoy flash and armor. You're not really going to notice the impact of the cost increase throughout the game, but trust me, it will be there. You will feel the pinch in some rounds. And something you'll definitely feel is the nerfs to Yoru's ult. His ult point requirement goes up from 7 to 8, and its duration got reduced from 12 seconds to 10 seconds. The ult point is a really big nerf and well deserved. That thing was definitely outperforming. The shorter duration will be situationally worse, and it's helpful when versing Yoru, meaning you're under threat for a much shorter time. It's going to be a little bit less flexible overall, but most commonly you're jumping out on one of the first people you see, so half the time you're using it, you're probably not going to even reach that full duration. You'll see Yoru slide down a tier on a couple of maps.
Does he commit? It looks like he does! Oh my god!
KO received a minor rework to his flash and some buffs for his ultimate. Flash now has an early pop function, so you can throw it against walls that are close to you and have it pop high. This doesn't make KO any better, but it does lower the skill floor for players wanting to try him out. And practically what that means is you don't need to have a whole bag of lineups before you want to play KO. You can just have a couple for where you want to play KO and then use the pop flash to fill any gaps. And then as you play more, keep adding more and more to your bag of tricks. They did also buff his underhand flash from 1.25 to 1.5, so that's going to make those pop flashes feel really nice now. And now when you go down in your ultimate, your teammates only needed a channel for 1.5 seconds to resurrect you, which is down from 3 seconds. In ranked, this feels particularly good because it's less risky and much less effort to do so, so your teammates are much more likely to pick you back up. Vice receives some major tuning to her numbers, which means she's no longer the default best senti on almost every map. Razorvine's got hit massively, going from 10 seconds to only 7 seconds, and she also got cut from 8 seconds to 6 seconds. Vice's kit is still solid, and she's in a good place now because when you're picking Vice, you feel like you're playing into a certain style rather than just picking her based on pure numbers. Very minor nerf to Astra's stun, going from 4 to 3.5 seconds, with the justification being it's just bringing it in line with non-ultimate stun numbers. In your ranked games, it's not going to have any noticeable impact. Ascent, and kicking off with the duelist, the Yoru nerfs hurt him a little bit, but not enough to bump him from S tier. Jet remains the top spot for premium entry and being great with the op on defense. And with the TEJO nerfs coming in, I even more strongly recommend Phoenix on this map. The only reason Phoenix is not in S tier on this map is because on attack side, not having dive can literally lose you the game. However, when you go double duelist, Phoenix can bring the flashes and you can focus on farming those orbs. And defensively, he's insane, playing like a pseudo controller with extra stall from his wall and molly, which is something that's super valuable on Ascent. Not to mention so many good flash spots for him on defense. I actually have a ranked duos playbook that includes Phoenix on my Patreon. As the TEJO nerfs arrive, Sova will retake his place as the king of Ascent. He never really lost, but TEJO definitely had 2 hands on the crown. The KO buffs plus the rework make it an easy easy jump for KO into S tier, which is where a good KO belongs anyway. The fact that his dagger can act as info and stall in the one piece of util on defense is actually insane. And if you want to get head started on those lineups, I've got a couple in my Ascent defense guide video. Omen remains the king of Ascent, but it'll be less necessary without TEJO. His kit is just so good for this map. Every piece solves an important issue on the map. If you know what you're doing on Astra, you can absolutely control the whole game with her. On defense, it's easy to set up double star traps in mains. And on attack, stun and gravel are great for hitting the hard to reach spots on site. Ascent is one of Clove's better maps. They can cover both sites relatively easy on defense. And if you have someone else who can provide extra stall, then you can get away with the shorter smoke time. Just be extra careful on attack. If you smoke and your team can't go out, it's going to be 80 seconds before you have 2 smokes again. Vice's NERFS slide her down a tier for me, which is absolutely fine on the map, but just joins the category of all other senties that aren't quite as good as Killjoy. Killjoy brings massive advantages to both attack and defense. Her ult is incredibly good for securing some attacking rounds, which can be hard to come by. And with the B main wall plating change, it's now pretty much impossible to destroy that ult. And there's no other agent who can match the value of her turret in B lobby that watches B main and mid pushes. Sage is a great consideration on Ascent in a double senti comp specifically. You're pretty much banking on just having an impossible to break defense half and gambling that you might be able to get just enough rounds on attack. She's got the longest stall in the game between her wall and her slows, and some cheeky top of wall plays that you can make. And if you learn a couple of slow lineups, being able to stop defenders from flooding in as you exec goes a long way. Haven. I had Waylay a little bit higher on release. It's just that in most games, you're not going to get the support or coordination that you need to be an S tier age, but her ceiling is definitely up there. Jet and Neon are still going to be your absolute go-to duelists. Sova's kit is incredible. You can fight for a lobby control. You can break trips with shock darts. Having a drone for the op lines and for garage is really important. And if you haven't tried Gecko on Haven, you absolutely should. There's lots of great flash positions, and also Wingman is incredible for getting spiked for quick Bs and also getting those defusers down. This is Omen's best map, and he's the best controller on it. Haven was built to get paranoia value. You have refreshable smokes for defaults into hits. Verticality can be abused all over the map, and even his ult, which is normally a bit can be really impactful here. Again, Astra's going to get a special mention. She's great for helping control A main if you're lacking a stun for that area. And if you have a team that can run it down C, Astra's util for backside goes absolutely nuts. You cannot play on site without putting yourself into a really bad position. The Vice nerfs hit hard here on Haven. Does have a great A site hold in particular, but if you're playing your Sentinel on A site, most of the time, that's not the best way to be playing the map. Cypher can just do everything you want on Haven. He can get info mid with his cam to stop any dangerous mid walkdowns from defenders. Default pressure A site with Cage and cam pursuers. On defense, he can cover the whole map. Cam can watch C site and garage, trip for B, and then you've got a spare trip for wherever you want. And if your opponent doesn't have a way to break trips, C site's just on lockdown. Icebox. I did it. I caved. I put Reyna in S tier. Icebox is the map where you'll find the most value out of Leah, allowing your team to flood out of sites without needing to break through a choke point. And because Icebox is a maze, there's so many spots where you can play off angles as Reyna to get an easy first pick and then dismiss away. Waylay drops down a tier but remains at the top as a second duelist. Waylay simply being another body that can go fast on Icebox just makes her incredibly good. And it's one of those situations where you can just slot her in as a second duelist and you don't need that extra support to make her work. If you want a sick double duelist comp for Icebox, check out my playbook. TEJO became quite the pest as predicted on Icebox with his ability to clear out space with salvos and also play in the post plant. With the nerfs, his drone is still going to bring some baseline value, but there's no way he's even close to being as good as Gecko or Sova. Running both Gecko and Sova together with no duelist is absolutely a viable comp option as well. They give you everything you need from clearing out ops to getting the spike down. You can run them solo or together, and it's a beautiful combo. Like I mentioned last video, there's one controller to play on Icebox, and it's Viper. I go into a little bit more detail in my previous tier list video, so you can check that out. If you're in the rare situation where you're not running 2 duelists on Icebox and you want to run double controller, both Clove and Harbor are a really good option. This is Harbor's best map by far. The way that he can push B main with his cascade is great, and the main feature being able to protect your planter with Cove. Killjoy stays on top of the Sentinel lineup, the only agent in the game who can cover all of the mid angles with her utility, and those ult positions, mwah, chef's kiss. If you're not running Killjoy on this map, you are at a severe disadvantage to your opponents. If you have the room, Sage and Chamber are both great options for second senties, although completely different. Sage plays a unique role, really using her wall around the spike, plant, and defuse. Chamber gets to feast on defense with the op, taking some aggressive lines and TPing out. And because you don't need a dash on Icebox on attack side, you can just take an aggressive rendezvous position and run in like a duelist. Lotus. Agents that can fight for rubble control will continue to be good. For duelists, raised paint shells is still a premium util piece here, considering it's free. Neon stun is just as, if not more powerful for taking the space. space, but it does come at the cost of 200 credits. However, just like Haven, Neon's ability to run around the map to help you cover all 3 sites on defense is incredibly useful, as well as on attack being one of the best agents for breaking through the A main choke with her wall and sprint. For initiators, Fade brings the complete package for Lotus. Seize for rubble control, Haunt lineups are crazy, and Prowlers for re-clears are so good. And she's the perfect pairing with Raze, one of the top 2 duelists on the map. And with TEJO falling off a cliff with these nerfs, Fade is the clear #1 pick for me, although Breach is also really solid. No changes to the controllers. Omen is still really good for all the reasons I mentioned in my last video, mainly fighting around rubble control and retaking with Paranoia. And still the best agent on this map is Viper. If you know how to play second controller Viper with that A wall and you already have someone who's played controller, it's a huge recommendation pick for me. It completely counters the way that Breach wants to play the map, using your wall to counter the fight, set up lurks, re-clear. It completely changes how you can approach the map. Including defense, there's such a high value wall from B to tree. If the attackers tap tree door, you wall up and it's so hard for them to push through that wall into tree. And then you can also wall up on retake to push out of Hobbit and crunch the branch space with stairs. For Sentinels, Vice maintains one of the top spots here. Her ability to anchor C site is still unmatched. Being able to stall and fight back with her flash is something that no other agent on the game can do, and it really transforms the way that you can hold C site. But people are sleeping on Deadlock. Now, I'm not ready to put her in S tier as a solo Sentinel. If there was a 5th flex category, she would absolutely be in S tier. Change has been big for her. Another tool that you can use to fight a lobby control. It's also incredibly easy to get value out of when you're execing. And then you have your stuns and walls to set up for really hard to deal with post plants. As TEJO flies off into the sunset, never to be seen again, we'll see how this impacts Deadlock's pick rate. But for now, I think she's good enough as a solo agent. Pearl. Yoru will remain as the best, if not top 2 duelists on this map despite the nerfs. His gate crash allows him to play towards both sides on the map on both sides of the map. Attack or defense, it doesn't matter. The gate crash lineups allow you to play both sides of the map instantly. It's also a map where you can have a self-sustained entry on both A and B site, which is rare. Flash and crash to default or flash and crash to halls, and you can get a good opening pick. Deco is the only piece of utility that can trigger Vice Trap, who's also very good on this map. This is another fantastic map for Phoenix as a second duelist. Lots of windy corners for him to get value out of his flat, and his wall is actually super helpful on site execs. On B, you can slice the side in half and get across the hall. And because there's potentially 3 lanes to smoke on A, if you didn't take art control, which you should with Phoenix, he's really good at it, then you can use his wall to cover off the art entry. TEJO was a real problem on Pearl, and that will be solved very soon. Sova and Fade are going to be really good initiators to go to. This is one of KO's best maps. You get so much value out of the dagger and his flashes. You can even use his molly to break Killjoy lockdowns. So give him a go on Pearl if you're keen to try him after the changes. If you're a controller main, Astra is still the best agent for you to play on Pearl. There's just lots of free value that you can get out of her kit. Make some more points in my previous video, as well as about Viper Harbor combo. But a great alternative if you need a fill smokes, or if your team's just not doing any rotating and running it down every map, is Brimstone. He has the unique ability to make A rushes easier with his triple smokes. Combined with Stim Beacon, you can have a pretty deadly exec. And he brings pretty good value to defense because the rotates are so long on Pearl. You can stall for ages, but you do have to be careful with your positioning. The nerfs didn't do any real damage to Vice's effectiveness on Pearl. The deep shear on B site is really hard to deal with for attackers. Without Yoru, you can't get rid of it without walking all the way down B long, which is so far committed. And even if you do get through it, you got that flash to deal with and the thorn. And at that point, the nerfs to her numbers don't matter because you're so far committed down B long, it's too late to go back. You can also learn lineups, so you can have one set of thorns on each side of the map, as well as thorns that prevent flooding on execs. Lurks are ever present on Pearl because of the size of the map and the interconnected web that all the lanes are. Killjoy is the best agent for being able to catch every single lurker. Split. Yoru's nerfs along with TEJO's nerfs make it a little bit harder for him to be successful. However, I still keep him top tier because there's enough self-sustaining ways that he can entry and affect the map, and also his defensive rotations on Split are insane. There's still no duelist that can keep up with what Raze does all across the map, being able to break trips, clear mid, bring verticality to an entry. She's got the whole package for Split. All of these duelists become a lot better when you have a Breach on your team. Even without his best buddy TEJO, he's still great on this map. TEJO is now absolutely garbage on this map. Do not pick him. TEJO had great strength in being able to default force space like vents, and the refresh of his salvos allow him to have them back up for exec or for post plant. And with the new changes coming in, he just won't be able to do that anymore, which is healthy for the game, I will say. No changes for controllers. If you want some additional notes about that, you can check my last video. Percentage with TEJO being gone, Killjoy can play on Split again. Still by far her worst map in the pool. There's not too much to gain from your turret as opposed to regular trips. Some of the spots where it might be useful are often spots where it's going to get smoked off. And the alt positions are fairly lackluster or risky. Cypher, Sage, and Vice all remain at the top with 3 very different playstyles. If you don't play Senti and you do need to fill, Sage is a nice simple pick. Vice has impeccable stall for the B site, and Cypher brings the ability to pressure A ramps with his cages, as well as using his cam to watch both lanes on either A or B. And our new addition to the pool, Sunset returns. Sunset's a map where you absolutely do not need a dash to exec on an A site. It does make going B a lot tougher, but at least Phoenix can wall across the pillar, making him a great pick on Sunset. For your more standard movement duelists, Raze and Neon again are going to be at the top. For an info-based initiator, I recommend Phage. It's got all of these great positions for a haunt on these rooftops. And for flashes, Breach is great for controlling the tempo and getting early control of A and B main. And for a mix of the two who's best as a second initiator, Gecko is insane. Nice open spots for Dizzy to get value as he flashes. And using Little Bro to plant and defuse, especially on B site, makes your life a hell of a lot easier. Controllers. This was one of Clove's better maps before the nerfs to their smoke cooldown timer. With their short duration and long cooldown, it's hard to cycle early smoke. Omen's just going to be your default pick in most scenarios. Decent paranoia lines, plus his TP is helpful for getting out of B. I also really like Brimstone on this map. You can feel the impact of his smoke duration on defense, and when execing on attack, Stim Beacon goes crazy hard, being able to boost your whole split push. It's also great for creating deadly rushes up through top mid, and Sunset's often a map with late defusers, so Alt and Molly are great for that as well. Sentinels. Even without his unbreakable trip, Cypher is still incredibly good on Sunset. He still has a bunch of different good trip positions and variations on both sites, as well as this cam in market, which allows you to watch mid. Chamber has some very good rendezvous positions on defense and attack, and taking early positions on defense on Sunset is particularly rewarding. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this video helpful, you might want to check out our other video guides on this channel or the Patreon content. And let me know below what agent, map, comp, game concept you would like to see a guide for next. Thanks so much.